if you listened to the right second album for
So
this
it
group.
was not available on Apple Music, but I did find the one that matched the title on YouTube with that matched the track listing from Wikipedia.
Match the track listing, right?
So that's what I had to do. I had to find the one that matched the track listing, but YouTube had it and it wasn't that hard to find there.
Right. So I'm in the same boat. It wasn't that hard to find, but
easy to make a mistake because I started and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm
yeah,
looking at the tracks and it has the title track for the last album in the middle of it, and that's
it
definitely not right.
that's the one I listened to until the last until that track.
Okay.
Because I just made a playlist of them and then I'm just going
Mhm.
through them, and then I hear that song and I'm like, there's no way that album was only 4 songs long, and so I go and I'm like, ugh. So then I just skipped to the third album, then I YouTube the second album.
Mhm.
But I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And then I was gonna tell you about it because I listened to them this morning
Mhm.
because I like to be very fresh with my artist.
Yeah, I did Sonny and Cher this morning.
Oh yeah, we did it together.
We did.
But then you had been messaging about like beats. I'm like, oh no, I'm not gonna also bog him down with, hey, here's more work just in case.
Yeah.
I figured we could just make it work. But honestly, I'll tell you what, like it does so like the reason I wanted to push the studio stuff earlier is because Sydney's family Hanukkah like party is Sunday.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, oh, let's push it earlier because they normally start their parties at like 4. Yeah, like
Family
3,
party?
3 or
Okay,
4.
three is fine.
Well, because it's
4
like
is
a
pushing a little.
dinner. It's like a dinner, and then that's it,
Yeah.
and it's not like a long thing.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, cool. Like this makes sense. This is fine. And she's like, you're coming to the Hanukkah thing, right? Because I mentioned I was going to the studio. She's like, and I was like, yeah. She's like, it's at like noon. Like what? It's never that early. And she's like, yeah, I know. And I was like, this is something you should have told me. I purposely put our studio session early so I can't go.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, okay. Like I understand. So if anything, this is working out. Maybe you were poisoned by her family trying to.
I mean, that's
make me
fine.
able to go to the party.
It's fine.
It was just so weird. I was like, the one I remembered the party. I had it all set up. And then this. So whatever. All right. I think I'm just ready.
I am also ready. So you just tell me when to hit the button.
Yeah, let me throw in. That doesn't actually do. So like in the design tab, I can change it to these little handwritten things for our names.
Okay.
But there's like a little floating snowman next to it because it's like the holiday one. Mm-hmm. And I was like, but I want the snowman. Like if it's not going to have a little floating snowman next to the name. Nice. Yeah, honestly, like.
What happened to Jesse Graves?
I realized that I had that still. Every like.
What had happened was.
Well, no, every once in a while we do a like a online like not D&D but like TTRPG game.
Okay.
And we usually just do it on like a Discord audio call. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yo, if you want to try face to face, like I have a program.
Yeah.
Because like we always say, oh, it's not the same as face to face. And I'm like, I have a program that I already use for other stuff that I could like that just will do that.
Yeah.
And be fine. And so we tried it. We tried it yesterday.
Nice.
And I realized I was getting everything ready. And like you were, and I was like, oh God, I have to change my name, or people are gonna be like, who the hell are you? Why are you saying your name's Pat? Your name is clearly Jesse Graves.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, because if there's one thing I like, I mean, I really enjoy like tabletop gaming and stuff.
Sure.
As you know.
I do.
But I hate leaving my apartment to go places on weeknights. Mm-hmm. So like not having to do that is
that's a good point.
Top tier, chef's kiss. So all right. I have changed the design thing. I'm ready.
All right, here we go. I am going to hit the button in 3, 2, 1.
They say we're young and we don't know. The Totem Talks podcast will never grow.
So true.
Well, I don't know if all that's true, but you got me, and Nikki, I've got you. Podcast. I got you, podcast.
Wonderful.
just off the rails at the
Yeah.
end.
I wasn't sure if we were supposed to harmonize at the end there, but then I was
I
also
mean,
like, there
we
could be
always should
lag, there could be
harmonize.
delay, we could be singing at different times.
Truly, the worst part about that harmonization that would be like me being Sunny
I
because I
agree.
should be
You should
Cher.
be, yeah.
Even
I
though
agree.
Cher and Sunny have similar ranges.
Yeah, they're not that far off.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Totem Talks. This is Nick. I'm Pat. We're Totem Talks. And holy cannoli, it is season 7.
That's right. We
We
finally made
found
it.
it. We traveled far and wide to locate season 7 of this podcast.
Yeah, I heard it was
And
supposed to be the lucky one.
well, based on the artist you've told me about, we will see.
We will see.
We will see.
Yeah,
But I think we have an interesting one today.
we do.
Before we get too far, I want to thank y'all for hanging out with us. Honestly, really great to have y'all back. We are ready to go. We're feeling good. We are relaxed. We got to listen to some good music as always.
Well,
Well, not as
sometimes.
always. As sometimes, you're right. I mean, truly, if the worst thing about a job is like, I didn't like that album music I had to listen to, like, there are
It could
worse
be
things.
worse. It could be worse.
Although, tell me I said that again, like episode 19 of
Yeah,
this
we'll get there.
season, when I'm like, oh, I can't anymore.
Yeah, I
Please.
think that you're gonna hit that. That wall's gonna happen sometime around episode 4 because I know that's gonna happen for me by episode 4.
Oh no,
Yeah,
Nick. There's 25 episodes in a season.
I know what there are.
Okay,
I know.
so
what
21 episodes of misery. Thank you.
Well,
Thank
it
you
could
in
recover
advance.
from there. It could recover.
It could and it will.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what? Before we get any further, Nick, do me a favor, buddy.
I would love to.
Let us know who we're covering today.
Sure. And as you alluded to beautifully at the beginning here, we're going to start things off with Sonny and Cher, and then we're going to face them off against another dynamic duo of Loggins and Messina.
It is truly the tale of the duos.
It is.
And as the title says, name a better duo.
That's right.
I guess without further ado, I'll take us in though. All right. So we'll start with Sonny and Cher. So Sonny and Cher were an American pop and entertainment duo in the 60s and 70s. And they were made up of, at the time, spouses Sonny Bono and Cher. And they were active from 1964 until technically 1977, although arguably they ended with the divorce of Sonny and Cher, which was 1975.
Correct.
But, you know, maybe they were like, let's hold on for a little bit. I don't know. We'll find out.
We will.
We covered 3 albums. So we started with Look at Us.
All right. No further. We can't go any further than that. Okay. Before we started, I told you how terrible the album covers were for all these albums.
Yes.
But I mean, this one in particular. I mean, you know what Sonny looks like? He looks like he looks like Javier Bardem's villain from No Country for Old
From
Men.
No Country for Old Men.
Stumbled into the world's most bizarre dressing room behind a movie stage and ended up with like a thin blue sweater with a disgusting fur.
Yeah, it's like, does the fur vest, is that what's not doing it
like
for
that?
you?
Well, that definitely makes me hate Sonny Bono ahead of time. But also his horrible haircut and face and everything about that picture of him is awful.
Oh,
and I don't feel bad
gosh.
about saying it because he's wearing fur, so he's a jerk.
You know what? Maybe it's faux fur. You don't know.
I hope that it is, but I don't think it is from the look of that.
That's fair. Well, I can tell you that Look at Us, the first album, came out in 1965. So apparently that was the way to dress in 1965.
Yeah, it's a shame that cameras had been invented by that time. It would have been better if it was just a drawing. Cher, on the other hand, doesn't look bad at all.
No, Cher looks amazing. Cher has this like true gift of, in every picture I see her in, no matter the decade, she always looks stunning.
Good for her. You know.
Like I give her credit, and I mean, I just saw her like not long ago in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade,
Oh, I've heard of that.
and she still looks amazing. And she's like
Yeah,
78, 77. Like
that's wild.
she looks 40.
Yeah,
I truly can't
it's
understand
impressive.
it. She's either has like the greatest genes in the history of the gene pool, or she truly is like working with the most talented plastic surgeons known to
Yeah.
man, but not
Well,
letting anyone else work with them.
I mean, she certainly has the money.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Put them on
listen,
retainer.
at 77, if you're telling me you got work done, I don't care.
Yeah, whatever.
I mean, you look great,
Live your
whatever.
life.
No judgment. What I can tell you about the next album, All I Ever Need Is You, is that it came out in 1972.
Great. No
And
comments about that one.
no comments about the album cover. It's kind of just like a random picture taken where they're going on tour, right? Like
Yeah,
it just looks like a bunch of boxed up musical equipment.
that's true. And Sonny looks he looks at least of the era in that one. He doesn't
That's
look
true.
particularly terrible.
That's true. The 60 to 70 bump was really good for Sonny.
Yeah.
And then we're going to close things out with Mama was a rock and roll singer. Papa used to write all her songs, which came out in 1973. And I mean, I'm assuming you have some comments about this album cover.
No, no, I'm good.
You're sure?
It's bizarre.
It is bizarre. The album covers for the two of them are wild.
Yeah.
I mean, you got her lounging like a sheer goddess in like this flowing blue outfit with Sonny sitting like in front of her like
Crisscross
he's a
applesauce.
punished schoolboy.
And then just like bizarre Victorian era toys that like are
Yeah.
uncanny valley posed all around them.
Yes. So you know what? If you can, I recommend looking up the album covers because they will be much more descriptive than we will be about them.
I agree.
But I'll start us off with Look at Us.
Please.
And here's the thing. It starts off with by far the most famous song Sonny and Cher ever put out, which is I Got You, Babe, as hinted at in the little opening sequence I did. And it is probably the best song on the album in terms of just like maybe the nostalgia, maybe the recognizability of it's really adding to it. I can tell you almost instantly when I'm doing a critical listen, because I've heard I Got You, Babe before. I've heard a few different Sonny and Cher songs in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never really had a critical ear for them. I've always just listened to them. I'm like, oh, it's Sonny and Cher. So listening with a critical ear, I can tell you it is immediately evident how much more talented as a singer Cher is than Sonny.
Yes.
It is instantly recognizable where I'm just like, oh, Cher is pulling here. I know Sonny is the songwriter.
Correct.
And I'll give him credit for that. Here's my issue. The songs are done well. The duets are done well. It's very much like I feel while listening to this album. It's 35 minutes. You know that couple, like everybody's experienced this, who just started dating. And so everything they do is like, who's a little, I love you so much. Oh my God. And you want to gag yourself a little bit. That is this entire album. And I don't mean that as an insult. Like I didn't hate listening to this album, but it's so evident that this is like a puppy love album. The two of these two people are so in love with each other, and they're so infatuated that everything is like the best moment ever. Yeah. And it is interesting because this is very typical of the 60s, a mix of covers and originals. So Sonny is on a few of these as a writer, and the other ones are all covers.
Right.
And I'll tell you the second track on this album is what I would consider a very mid version of Unchained Melody.
Correct.
But to be fair, I think that's probably the weakest song on the album. It's probably the strongest song is first, the weakest song is second, and then everything else is just pretty middle of the pack. They're a good duet. They're a good duo. Their duets are, their harmonies are rather tight. I feel like not no spoilers. In any other week, I would be really complimenting their harmonies. This is a tough week for it, but I still think their harmonies are tight, and I think that uh, Sonny has a very good knack for being a simple storytelling lyricist. He's not going to win any awards for his
Sure.
poetry in here, but he's very good at like just telling a good story during the song, or like getting his point across without it being like too stuttery or flowy in weird
Sure.
ways. And that's what I got.
Okay. So I took away a lot of the same things. I looked at this. I see a lot of covers. I say, okay, Sonny's writing the other ones. At least they wrote "I Got You, Babe."
Yeah,
That's credit where
that
credit
is
is
big
due.
for them.
But I mean, could you? Could anyone listen to this album and not guess what year it came out in? Like within a 1.5 year leeway
No,
either
I
way.
don't.
You know what
I
I
don't
mean?
think so.
Like
I think that's it's a very dated album for
it's
sure.
exactly like it's a good era to be in because everything is very pleasant. Like
Yeah,
generally the pop rock of this time is pleasant to listen to. So it's solid. It's an enjoyable album to hear, although it doesn't necessarily like bring you in at any time. Even like the better written songs on here wouldn't have been enough for me to be like, "Oh, I'd like to investigate this group further." It would be enough to be like, "Okay, well that was a nice little 30 minutes and now I'm moving on with
yeah,
my life." Um so good and bad, like I don't want to come across as like totally negative on it cuz like I mean I thought it was a nice listen, but there was nothing that really grabbed hold of me at any point. Came down to be like, "Oh, let me just check. Are they writing these songs or not?" Oh, Sonny isn't very good at singing, really. And then I find the second album, which you have to go to YouTube to find, because for whatever reason there are multiple albums called "All I Ever Need Is You," and one of them is not right, and the only correct version of it is on YouTube. That's
yes,
the actual studio album. Um, and so I'm like, I guess Sonny is like he's earning his spot here because he's got the capacity to write like a third of the songs that make the final cut on the album, and then he can sound like a slightly cleaner version of Bob Dylan. Um, I mean, that's
yeah.
what it is. Like he is just like a little bit
He's
of he's a
he's
cleaner Bob Dylan,
significantly more melodic than Bob Dylan
but he
typically
has the
is.
same voice, the same
Yes,
nasally. Like you would, if Bob Dylan as like an 18-year-old got like a vocal coach and worked with them for like 10 years to really try to improve his singing, but like still had no like natural talent. That's
yeah,
what Sonny Bono would sound like.
that's fair.
um
I'm with you on that. I get you.
yeah. So I don't know. So now I'm sort of like, okay, he writes okay songs. He looks like a bozo all the time. He's not a very good singer. So I mean, I guess Cher is carrying everything here. And like she's solid, but honestly, I came out of this album thinking like if you're gonna have what is essentially a pop rock record of this era,
Yeah,
I'd rather hear a group that had good harmony and multiple strong singers take a crack at these songs. Like I would like to hear the Rascals slash the Young Rascals from previous seasons take
sure.
on this album instead and hear what they would do with the vocal arrangements, because that I think might elevate this album to a level that Sonny and Cher couldn't have.
Yeah, I mean, Sunny vocally is definitely bringing down the average. I
Yeah.
agree with you there. I think there's two things of note on this album. Positive note. I think when Cher is singing, there's a couple times on this album where she's allowed to kind of let loose just a little bit,
Hmm.
and you can hear the beginnings of like, oh, Cher is talented.
Sure.
Cher is talented, and like obviously, we know that Cher balloons into a solo career of diva esque proportions later
Oh,
on in her
really?
career. What?
I lost track of her after she got married to Greg Allman.
Yeah, of course, of course. Sonny, though, there is a moment on this album that truly impressed me from Sonny Bono. And it was the only time in his writing or singing that I was like, oh, I'm feeling the emotion you want me to feel, and other than like schmaltzy
Sure.
romance, and it's You Better Sit Down, Kids, which was a like an acoustic telling of like a father, like who's getting a divorce and like telling the kids like, listen, I'm not going to be around anymore. Like it's nobody's fault. You just have to be like be better, be good kids. Don't cause any trouble for your
Sure.
mother. Don't. And I was like, wow, I'm really feeling like first off, kudos because it was a really emotional song.
Hmm.
But it was very simply put, and it was very much like I get the feeling like he's writing this for his kids,
Sure.
like he's talking to children. But it was like a deep emotional, and it did a good job of conveying the deep emotional subject of divorce, but telling it to a child and having them
Yeah.
understand. But it definitely felt out of place on this album because this is not like I would have thought this would be on the last album when they were getting divorced.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was like, who are you talking? You're not singing this about divorcing Cher yet.
Yeah, I would imagine. At least that was another
So
4 years before that
yeah, it
happened.
was a little weird of a placement of it, but it definitely was the first song, and really, like, spoiler alert, the only song that where Sonny impressed me with both his writing and performance of
Sure.
it. So I'll skip to the final album here. Mama was a rock and roll singer. Papa used to write all of her songs, which is a lie. Papa wrote a third of your songs, Cher.
Yeah, plenty of other people wrote the other ones.
Yeah. This album is interesting to me because you're getting a little more Cher. She's singing a little bit more of the melodies as we go. And I think that's a good decision.
Oh, well, definitely.
Uh, and you're getting a little bit more experimentation on this album. Like, if the first album was every bit the 60s, this album is every bit the 70s, where you're getting a little bit
Yeah.
more heavier tone in the guitar, a little bit more like rock in the pop rock, which was not a
Yes.
sound I ever expected from Sonny and Cher, and
Right.
was very interesting to hear.
Mhm.
I think it was done okay. Like, I'm not going to be like, Sonny and Cher is the staple of a pop rock album of the 1970s. But for the growth I was not expecting to get, but got, I was impressed. Also, Mama was a rock and roll singer. Papa used to write all her songs. The title track, written by Sonny Bono. I'm going to be honest with you. You may have loved it. 7 minutes too long.
100% agree.
It was 7 minutes. It was a 9.5 minute song. And I
I
was
was
like,
so
huh,
curious.
there wasn't enough of a change, which, as I've said many times on this podcast, is my weakness for long songs.
And it took too long to get started.
Yes, also that. So those are my opinions. I'm short and sweet with them. I think yet again a good mix of covers and originals. Although on this one, when I say a good mix, I
I
mean
mean, one
one song
original.
was Sunny and every other song was a cover.
Yeah.
But I will give them a little bit of credit. They had taken a short hiatus between the album before All I Ever Need Was You and All I Ever Need Was You. And so these two albums came out rapidly because they needed to like make up the time for the studio,
Sure.
which is why this one is mostly covers because they basically recorded All I Ever Need Was You and then almost immediately went back in and recorded this.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, I mean, I mostly agree with what you're saying. One, I was surprised at the sound. It was like it's 1973 and somebody came up to them like with a record and they're like, "Guys, have you heard about this rock and roll thing that's been happening?"
Right?
They're like, "Oh my god, this is so cool. We should try that."
Yeah.
So it was definitely interesting and unexpected to hear him go there. Here's my problem. It was an issue that you brought up on the first album. It's an issue I could have brought up on the second album with the song like More Today Than Yesterday. And it's
Yeah.
an issue I can bring up in this album with the only songs that I knew, which were Listen to the Music.
Oh, they're
And
all
I
just
can see
mid.
clearly now
They're mid
is
covers.
all of their covers, do not touch the originals. Like there's
No.
not a single cover that I heard where I was like, oh, I like the original, or I like the original and this cover and that cover more than their version. Like it was It came in last place of all the versions I've ever heard of all these songs, essentially.
It was actually
Um,
so. It was. I was trying so hard to find one
mhm.
that I went and listened because a song I've never heard. Brother Loves Travel and Salvation Show by Neil Diamond.
Yeah, I don't know.
I even went back and I went and listened to the Neil Diamond version of that to be
Okay.
like, well, maybe that one. No,
No.
listen to the Neil Diamond song.
Okay.
If
Okay.
you need a Neil Diamond deep cut, that's the one, I guess.
I guess so.
It's a fine Neil Diamond
Yeah.
song.
Sure. And here's what I'll say. I wanted to talk about the one original too. Mama was a rock and roll singer. Mama was a rock and roll singer. Pop used to write all her songs. Here's what I hated about the beginning, and here's why I said that it took too long to get started. They did the thing where you like hit on a chord and just kind of vamp there
Yeah,
that bands will usually do, like to end a song as like the big ending or as
yeah,
like a moment in the bridge maybe. The only instance off the top of my head I can think of it really working at the beginning of a song is an Evil Woman by ELO. Like there's the hit and then the kind of "Ooh, you made a fool of me," right? And then they
yeah,
do it twice and they're into the song. This song hits those chords and does the "ooh" and waits on it, and while there's some words going on, it does it for literally over a minute. It just
yeah.
hits it and hangs out and vamps over it. And then like 15 seconds later, it does it again and it hits that chord and I'm like, okay, are we going somewhere? Like I should not have to wait 75 seconds for
Hmm.
a song to decide to move past that section of it.
Yeah,
And then everything that happened after that never changed. Then they were like, all right, we did the one cool thing. Now we can make the last 8 minutes of this the same thing over and over and over again and never
that
have
was
any
what was
variation.
so crazy to me because it's not listed like this in the album, like, or it's not listed like this on the wiki. In the album on where I listened to it, not a sponsor,
Mhm.
Google Music or YouTube Music, now is it? I don't know, one of them, whatever it's
I don't
called
know.
now. It's you used to think it used to be Google Play Music, now it's YouTube
Sure.
Music. Still not a sponsor, unless you want to be. But
Sure.
it was listed as Mama was a rock and roll singer, pop used to write all her songs, parts 1 and 2. So I
Okay.
fully was expecting there to be some difference.
Nope.
There was not.
I guess that's like the single version had to be split in half.
I guess I
Like
don't
What
know.
Did I Say by Ray Charles.
You know
Yeah.
what? Whatever.
Yeah. Agreed.
Uh,
Oh, and David Paich and Jeff Porcaro play on this album, so shout out to Toto.
yes, shout out to the Toto sighting as always.
Very easy to find.
They're everywhere, and also probably strongly contributed to the rock and roll feel of this album.
Yeah, for sure.
The fact that it felt more rock and roll. But here we go. I
All
will
right.
start voicing some Sonny and Cher facts. And so I'm going to try very hard here to keep them to Sonny and or Sonny and Cher. Because I
Okay.
assume that sometime in our podcast we'll cover Cher's career,
Yeah.
which is like post Sonny and Cher. So I'm
Mhm.
trying to avoid a lot of this of the Cher part of this. So this is going to be Sonny
Very good.
and or Cher centric. The first thing I'd say in terms of uniqueness, I feel like it's pretty unique to have someone who will eventually be a sitting congressman as part of your pop duo.
That's fair.
Sonny Bono served in the U.S. House of Representatives from '95 until his death in '98.
Served is a strong word to
He
to
was
use
a
for what the
member. He was
people
a
in Congress do.
he was a member of Congress from
Thank you.
'95 to '98,
Yeah.
which is pretty rare
They served
for
somebody, but it wasn't you.
I feel like there's not too many musicians who are like or congressmen who are like, yeah,
Oh
I
yeah,
was
for
a
sure.
sensational pop duo in the '60s.
You're not
So I'll
wrong.
say that's unique. Number two, the highlight. It's hard to not say the first song they put out on a record is the highlight for them. I Got You, Babe. The album went gold. The song is a huge hit. Earned them a Grammy. And like basically because of the success of that song, they were able to oh, excuse me.
Ugh.
They were able to leverage that into a full duo career slash superstardom for Cher slash like a comedy variety show that they. I mean, we'll talk more about that
Yeah.
stuff and cultural impact, but like they turned one song into a ton of stuff, and then were ranked number 18 in Rolling Stone's list of greatest duos of all time.
Okay.
which is another duo list. So I read that list, Nick.
Yeah.
That's another Rolling Stones list we would have a blast obliterating.
Oh, good.
Because it is wild to me, the order of things on that list.
Oh, that makes
Uh
me unhappy.
yeah, I'll tell you, spoiler alert, our other group is not on it.
I was just checking.
Yeah, spoiler alert on that one.
Okay, number 15 should be number 1, and I haven't even seen 14
Yeah, I thought you meant. Well,
one
there's
yet.
a couple arguments for number 1. Number 15 should be at least 12 spots higher. I'll promise you that.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so the low light. I feel like the obvious choice for a low light would be their divorce. One, it was a very messy divorce. Two, it caused the end of Sonny and Cher as a duo. Cher cited, and I quote, involuntary servitude as her reason for divorce. She said that Sonny Bono was extremely controlling of her artistically and was withholding her rightful ownings as part of the duo. So she wasn't getting like paid nearly as much as she should have been for it. So those are some issues there. However, I will say that sometime before he passed away, it's unclear when they had patched things up.
Okay.
And so the other option here for like a low light would be Sonny's death. Even though it's no longer they had been broken up for 20 plus years at that point. It was still a huge moment. Sonny and Cher were still Sonny and Cher.
Sure.
Like nobody, they were still like in the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah.
And when he died, unbeknownst to Cher, she gave this very heartbroken eulogy at his funeral and had like no idea that it was a televised funeral. And like she thought there were like cameras there just taking pictures because like her and other stars were there.
Oh, wow.
And she did not know it was like fully televised. So like her speech was like totally unguarded and was like heartbroken about like the man that he is and like very sad stuff.
Oh, wow.
So that's probably a low light. I'll say the nicest stuff. I was having trouble finding Sonny and Cher specific niceties.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I can tell you, and I won't say too many specific things, and this is where I really wanted to be clear earlier on. Cher has a ton of philanthropy. Mm-hmm. She's well known for her philanthropic efforts. We will talk more about them when we cover Cher at some point in the future, so I won't get specific there. So instead, I'm going to cover a nice thing that Sonny did. Okay. Now, this is a reasonably divisive thing.
Oh boy.
But I would consider this a nice thing. He, during his time in Congress, championed very specifically extending copyright terms. He was a huge proponent for extending them. He had tried to pass bills extending it and things like that. He was unable to do it during his life, but because of his efforts, his widow took over which is crazy to me. His widow took over his role in Congress and then got reelected.
Okay.
To serve in Congress.
Okay.
That's a real, true fact. So she and other members of Congress were able to pass what eventually became known as the Sonny Bono Copyright Extension Act, which did a couple things. It basically froze the public domain for 20 years because it extended copyright for 20 years. So there were no new things entering the public domain for 20 years until from 99 or 2000 until 2019. So 99 to 2019. Wow. Okay. And relevant. It allowed for people to maintain stronger creative copyright claims over their work. All good stuff so far. The other side of this, well, it was very good for like songwriters and low-level creative types. It also was very beneficial for big businesses.
That's what I was thinking the second.
Right. And that's the thing. So like there's a very specific big-eared group, big-eared creative company with a large park located in Florida, looking at you, mouse, that benefited greatly from this because they were able to keep a certain Michael Mouse,
Mm,
who has a certain nickname I won't say,
sure.
under copyright until they were able to renew the copyright. Whereas they would not have been, they probably wouldn't have been able to renew it as
Had this not, yeah.
there's a chance that good old Michael Mouse would have lapsed.
Sure.
So it was a good thing for like us as like artists and copyright and like working on like copywriting our songs. Like
Mhm.
we're gonna have control over our stuff unless we get victimized by certain people in the
Yeah.
music industry because
So anyone.
contracts are tough. Contracts are tough in the music
Yeah.
industry. Look at what happened with Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
But I'll count that as a nice thing. It was.
Okay.
It seemed to be mostly
Meant well.
intentioned as a nice thing from a former musician who was a copyright who was like had copyright over his songs,
Mhm.
trying to do the right thing.
Just as
And
long as he didn't have to pay like a fair share to his wife at the time, then that would be fine.
again, that and you're so like
And they reconciled.
in terms of meanest things of Sonny and Cher. While I voiced it as one of the things of a low light, it's definitely the meanest thing is the way that
Yes.
Cher was treated during their marriage and the cause of the breakup. Like allegations of indentured servitude and withholding of her rightful
Uh,
funds. It's like that's mean as hell.
that's
That
not
is the
great.
meanest thing. Yeah, like wild stuff.
Uh-huh.
But the 6 degrees I have is a fun one.
Oh, good.
So one of the guitarists on the album "In Case You're in Love," which is one we didn't cover. It's the one
Okay.
before. It's the one before "All I Ever Need Is You."
Sure.
Was David Cohen,
Okay.
and if you don't recognize him by name, you and our audience would recognize him as being a member of Country Joe and the Fish.
Ah, very good. Very good.
So that's our 6 degrees. Good old David Cohen from Country Joe and the Fish
Love those guys.
played guitar on one of Sonny and Cher's albums.
Cool. All right. Well, it's time to move on then, right?
Yes, it is. Let's
Loggins
bring
and
on
Messina.
Loggins and Messina.
Time to pee.
Get out of here. What's up, Super Mario 6? Oh, all righty. All right. All right. If you're one of the people that's watching this either live and or if you stumble upon the YouTube archive of this is one of Nick's longer pees. I'll tell you. Normally a fast peer. He's got a small bladder. This is one of his longer pees. He's back now, but
I am.
just we were. I was discussing with the audience how that was one of your longer pees.
Oh, I had to talk
You're,
to Jackie real quick.
oh, okay. During the pee, or was it as a post pee discussion?
It was post.
Okay. I knew it couldn't be pre pee because you
No.
had to pee.
Oh, yeah. I will stop for no one.
That's fair. That's fair.
Okay. I'm ready.
Are you?
want
You're
those
already
loops.
ready to go. You need nothing. You need no waiting. You're just
Let me think about it.
give it a thought.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, I'm ready.
Three, two, one, go.
Loggins and Messina was an American pop rock duo consisting of, you guessed it, Kenny Loggins and Jim Messina. So they achieved major chart success during the 1970s. They were active from 1971 to 1976, and then for some reunions in '05 and '09. And that seems to be it for them. We covered three
That's right.
albums. We started with Sittin' In, which was in 1971. That album was released.
That's right.
We followed that up with, and I can't thank them enough, Loggins and Messina, the eponymous album. It wasn't an eponymous debut,
Now, and there's
but
reason for that,
we'll
which we'll get
take
to.
the eponymous album when we get them. And that
That's
came
right.
out in 1972. And then we wrapped things up with Native Sons, which came out in 1976. And
Yes.
it is your turn, my friend. Get
Okay.
us started.
So there are some circumstances related to this first album that explain why their eponymous album came second. I don't know if you took notes on anything like that. I'm going to get to it later.
Get to it
So
later.
I'm
I
glossing
took no
over it.
notes on Loggins and Messina.
Perfect.
I did my critical listening and took notes on
That's
the
it.
albums.
Okay. Only on listening. Okay, great. So overall, I was pretty pleased with this album. It's like it is country, blues, folk, rock. It's all those things equally, sort of. And I think that's a nice combination to draw from, especially at this time. And there was just good range here. I felt like uh, you couldn't necessarily put your finger on what was going to happen next, but all the songs were solid. They were all good. It's definitely an album I would re-listen to, um, and that it aged, I think, a little bit better than what we heard with Sonny and Cher, which felt like very immediately of an era.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and I honestly, I probably will listen to this again, but the one song on it, I mean, like it has the song, so it wasn't even a single on this record. But what I think, while it wasn't their biggest hit at the time, because this record didn't hit immediately, over time it has clearly asserted itself as like the biggest
Yeah.
part of their legacy. Danny's song is on this record, and Danny's song is a beautiful song um,
Absolutely.
that always gets stuck in my head every time I listen to it, and then it's the only thing I can think for like 2 weeks.
Directly before we went live, Nick picked up his guitar and started playing it, and I
Mhm.
was like, just to prove his point.
Exactly, like it's
It's
stuck
in
in
his
there.
head. Yeah.
Can't get it out. But I enjoyed the record, overall. I thought this of the 4 we've discussed so far, this would be my number 1.
And here's what I'll tell you. I mean, I also really enjoyed the album. I'll go song by song real quick, very shortly. Uh, I listened to the first song, Nobody But You, and I went, oh, that's not Kenny Loggins singing the lead on that.
That's right.
And I was like, Jim Messina's a good singer. Okay.
Mhm.
And then Danny's song came on with Kenny Loggins singing. I'm like, I see why Kenny Loggins sings most of the songs.
Mhm.
He's a significantly better singer.
Sure.
Nothing against Jim Messina
No.
because he's a good singer, and I'll tell you flat out, the harmonies they incorporate are way stronger than what we got from Sonny and Cher because both of them are good singers.
Mhm.
And not like it's not Kenny Loggins like carrying the weight of
Yeah.
a bad singer and bringing it up. It's two good singers,
And
whereas with
2 good
Sonny and
guitar
Cher, it wasn't.
players.
And two good guitar players. Uh, I know I did read one little anecdote about how there was a tour that they went on after Kenny Loggins had like messed up his hand and had
Yeah.
surgery,
And he
and
couldn't
so
play.
he like couldn't play, and I was like, oh, that sucks.
Mhm.
I mean, good for them, but they are both good guitar
Yeah.
players. And the good thing about them is they're both writing.
Mhm.
Messina seems to be writing slightly more of the songs. And ironically, they're not writing the songs really together often.
Right.
It's like a lot of it is like Loggins wrote this song or Messina wrote this song. So it's
Oh,
very
man.
interesting.
There is gonna everything about this is gonna make so much sense when I can finally reveal all this information I've been withholding.
Good. I mean, these are all just like little things that I noticed
Hmm.
during. Was like it seems like they came to the table with like separate songs and played them
Yep.
together, which is really cool. And it comes across really well. Danny's song is probably the best written song that we covered at least so far.
Yeah.
And I will say like it does a similar job to me of conveying the emotion the song's meant to convey
Hmm.
as the song that I talked about with Sunny.
Yeah. Right.
Like it's in that same vein, but it's obviously better performed,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
a
For
big
sure.
deal. So yeah, this album's a big plus for me, and I'll take us into Logs and Messina, which I mean you'll be surprised to find is more of the same to me.
Hmm.
Longins and Messina are a very good group in terms of they do a couple things really well. They sound good together,
Hmm.
and they push the envelope.
Yeah.
So I never feel like they're settled. I never feel like they're just like comfortable putting out another album. Like it doesn't feel like that to me. It feels like we are pushing the envelope of what we're doing. This album skews a little bit more like a little bit more
Rock and
rockish
roll.
than countryish. Still has that country. I mean, Kenny Loggins is a country singer,
Hmm.
so it has a country feel to it, of course. Like, you know, if Garth Brooks came out with a rock and roll album, it's going to sound like country rock because
Sure.
Garth Brooks is a country singer.
Yeah.
Same thing with Kenny Loggins here. Like, they're not necessarily leaning into the country, but you can't escape it.
Yeah. I agree.
But I think this one is another really strong showing from them all the way through. I enjoyed listening to it.
Yeah. I agree. And I think this album sounds a little bit more like they're writing together instead of separately.
Sure.
Um, which again, I'm sure that that is the case, but you can like hear that they've grown together as writers a little bit more. I like that there's a non-guitar instrument being brought to the table by each one of them. So Kenny Loggins is featured on harmonica for a couple of the songs on here, and Jim Messina plays electric mandolin. So it's cool that they're all bringing like multiple things and doing them well,
Yeah, for sure.
which I really enjoy. The harmonies are really good, and here's I almost feel like they're being underutilized. So they have 3 songs where they are listed as like co-lead singer of the 11 on here. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like maybe they could have gotten away with doing a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or at least like maybe finding more space for harmonies within each other's songs than they did. I feel
That
like
is the
they're
big one.
yeah.
That is for sure the big one to me. Like, even though it definitely feels more cohesive, like I do wish I was hearing more harmonies because the harmonies that are there are
They're
tight
exactly. So
and they're resonant.
and yeah, it just feels like such an asset, and they use the asset like I can't sit here and say that they don't, but it could have had more. I
Yeah,
could have had
it could have
more.
been more.
Uh,
I do think like we're both coming to that as people who do that. Like
mhm.
we harmonize
Yeah,
consistently, both in when we're doing covers and when we're doing our original stuff. We
right.
always look for those harmonies and have like worked for years to like I think sound good together. So I think I think and they have it, and I think we both just want to hear more because it's like well like it's so good, it's so good when like people sound good together.
Yeah, I well couldn't agree with you more. And I will say because I don't want to gloss over it that their biggest chart hit, their gold single, "Your Mama Don't Dance and Your Daddy Don't Rock and Roll," um, was also on that record. A nice contrast to your mama was a rock and roll singer and your dad used to write
Yeah,
those
yeah,
songs.
yeah,
So moving on to Native Sons, and what's interesting here is that it feels like they've grown apart again.
yeah.
This is an album that feels more like the first one in the sense that it feels like songs that were written separately and then thrown on the same album by them. Good songs, an album that's nice to listen to, but less cohesive. A little more folk oriented at times on this record. Um,
You can look right at the album cover and know that.
yeah, right. Here's okay. This might sound silly. I think this was the song when I was a child that did this. Uh, here's something that I don't enjoy hearing, and it's grown adult men referring to their dad as their daddy, my daddy. And I know it's a southern thing. It's a southern thing, but it just sound I don't know. I don't like the
Nick,
phrase. It
I
feels
think
weird.
fully our generation has like the term daddy has been just marred so much
Sure.
by the real phenomenon and then meme of it of people referring to their significant others as daddy.
That's
And so
true.
when you hear anyone who's an adult say daddy, that's where you go.
Yeah, it still just feels weird.
Yeah, no, I would never call my dad daddy.
No.
It feels weird to me to even say that.
Yeah, it
Like when I
does.
hear adults say daddy, I never think they mean their parent.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So that's that. I mean, otherwise, it was mostly an enjoyable album, if maybe they're least effective.
Yeah, and this album was the one where I kind of it all kind of clicked into place where I listened to this first, but I definitely got like I already knew the trajectory of Sonny and Cher's albums and career just because it was all over and it's still survived today. They got together, they got married, were a duo, and then divorced and broke up.
Right.
And I feel the same way here. It felt to me like the first if you compare them, right? The first album is like the dating phase. They're two people who like haven't committed to each other but are making music together. They're
Mhm.
together. The second album is this group is together. They're married now. You know, and
Mhm.
I'm not starting a scandalous rumor of any romance between
No.
Loggins and Messina, but like musically, they're
Sure.
married now. They're together. Everything feels cohesive and good and so strong. Their output. I'm like, and if anything, we went more and more together. And then this last album almost feels like our lawyers suggest that we do this one more time. Let's get together and discuss things at your home ranch studio, Jim, and then we'll go our separate ways amicably. Like it doesn't seem like they don't seem like angry or bitter. I don't know if they were, but they don't seem it in the album. But it definitely feels like there's some creative differences happening, and you can feel some tension.
Yeah, you got a lot of this right on.
Yeah, it's you know what I mean. Hundreds of albums have we've listened to for this podcast. It's kind of and especially with a duo, I think it's easier to get that than like a band.
Mhm.
But those are my
Okay.
thoughts. Still good listen. Still good
Yeah.
listen though.
Okay. So here's what's unique about Loggins and Messina. They are probably one of the most popular groups in history that never had any intention of being a musical group. Um,
Good.
so this is where that whole feel of the first album comes in. This Jim Messina was in Buffalo, Springfield, and Poco. So
Yeah.
spoiler alert for 6 Degrees,
Yeah.
Poco. Um, and he basically wanted to kind of retire from touring at that point. He was like, you know what, I'm done with it. I'll get in, I'll do some songwriting, I'll do some producing, and that'll be my life. And so the record company he was working for signs Kenny Loggins to a 6 album deal. And since he is a nobody at this point, um, in order to help give him a little bit of credit, Jim Messina, who's well known from having two fairly successful bands, is going to lend his production and some writing credits to this album. And they're working on it, and they're working together, and they're working together, and Jim Messina is contributing more and more and more and more to the album until it gets to the point where it was just like, well, let's call this album. It's a Kenny Loggins album, but it's like Jim Messina sitting in with Kenny Loggins. So sitting in is
Mm.
short for that concept essentially. And so they basically went from like just producer to artist, to finding themselves naturally starting to be like, oh, okay, well, it seems like this is a 50-50 project now. I guess we're a duo,
Yeah,
to fully embracing the duo and then going with it from there. Um,
interesting.
so yeah, that is what's unique about them. I have a couple more 6 degrees um, besides Jim Messina being a founding member of Poco. Um, Kenny Loggins, his very first writing credits as a musician actually came on songs that were recorded by the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. Mhm.
Whoa,
Yes,
throwback.
indeed. And after Loggins and Messina, Kenny Loggins co-wrote the song "What a Fool Believes" with Michael McDonald.
Of course he did.
Mm.
Of course he did.
So there you
Oh,
go. So the highlight for this group, I mean, it has to be, there was a time in the 70s where they were the most successful duo of the 1970s. So they sold 16 million albums. They were putting out an album every year. They kept going platinum and then gold. They were basically on top of the world until the end of the 70s, when they were overtaken by Hall & Oates. They were, for most of the decade, the highest selling duo of the era.
another duo that's having some tumult right now.
Who's having some?
You haven't heard about Hall and Oates' beef?
No. Was it
Daryl Hall
undercooked?
filed a restraining order against Oates. Yeah,
What?
it's crazy. I don't know. I don't know. Like all the specifics haven't been released, but this is like reasonably recent, like within the last month, I think.
Okay, yeah, I have not heard about this.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. That like it was came out of nowhere.
Hmm.
Daryl Hall filed a restraining order
Okay,
against Oates. So Hall and Oates, there's
not doing
trouble in
well.
paradise. Yeah.
Okay, well, that brings me to the low light, which is
Which was Hall and Oates
which was
breaking
Hall
up.
and Oates breaking their record. But I mean, it was just such a like all 6 years is a long time to call something a flash in the pan, but it was like accidental. They came together, did a couple albums. By the end, they were done collaboratively, and it was over. Like called it quits. They fulfilled the contract and we're done. Um,
They're like if Sonny and Cher were the group who were like the puppy love friends,
yeah.
Loggins and Messina feel like the friends who like all their friends were like, you guys should date.
Mm,
You guys should date. And then they were like, well, let's give it a shot. And then they had like a reasonably successful relationship.
sure. Yeah, that's fair. I think by the end, at least from what I read, it became less collaborative and more about competition. Who could write the best songs for this album? Who could bring the best thing to the table? Um,
It's a fine
yeah,
line to walk
it
because I
is.
think like you can really push yourself to be really good if you look at it that way, but like you can't do it at the expense of alienating your writing
Right.
partner.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
you want there to be like some friendly, like, or not even competition, but like, like for instance, like
It's just
for our
motivation. You
albums,
just like want to put out something that's good,
yeah, like
you
for
know?
our albums, like if you come up with a song, like you've written a bunch of songs for our new album, and like I listen to them and I'm like, damn, dude, I want to get what I'm writing on this level.
Sure. Oh yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah, like that's like so like
Yeah.
it's not a competition between us. It's just like I don't want there to be like
I don't want there to be anything down. Like I want to make sure
a
everything
dip
is
in our
good.
quality
Yeah.
based on who's writing it. So like, when I feel like you put out something really strong, I want to match that. And
I
yeah, if you feel the
fully
same way,
agree.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good way of thinking about it. And here's something else. During their time together, Kenny Loggins turned down a co-starring role in the 1976 film A Star Is Born.
I did know that he did
Yeah,
compose stuff for A Star Is Born.
yeah, he that kind of became his thing after Loggins and Messina was writing
Oh,
music
I've seen
for
Footloose. I know.
movies.
I'm well
he was
aware.
he was pretty good at that. So that's all that for meanest and
There
nicest.
there's a reason Danny's song may be the best Loggins and Messina song, but it's nowhere near the most well known Kenny Loggins song
Sure.
because Footloose exists.
Yeah, exactly. So I was having a hard time because, like you said, like it's almost impossible to do this without just delving into each one individually.
Yeah.
There's not like a positive Loggins and Messina thing or a mean Loggins and Messina thing. So I mostly was just looking at Kenny Loggins. Um, and I was able to find some interviews where they would be like, Mr. Log, in a little blurb, Mr. Loggins is well known for his like charitable actions and such. But like no questions about it, no information any further,
Yeah.
other than like he is a charitable fellow and he's known in his circles. So I mean, like I'll take their word for it, but I wasn't finding anything that
You
was
weren't
actually
finding
like
the
conclusive about
receipts.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I get you.
Um, and then as I was going through like just everything he's ever done, I found something that I was initially very concerned by.
Oh God.
And
Okay.
then it turned out to be fine. But we were talking about how he's super well known for the movie music. He actually contributed a song to a film called The Art of the Deal.
Oh.
And this film, The Art of the Deal, is it's a film adaptation of a book by the same title, which was written by some ghostwriter. I don't know who actually wrote the words. I only know who didn't write the actual words, and there's one person I'm
It's
sure didn't.
it's credited. You could
It's
say
credit to
it's
somebody.
credited to a former political figure.
Correct. Um, Relatively divisive. And then I found out that this film was a parody film starring Johnny Depp in the titular role.
Okay, that's funny.
And so
Okay.
so when I saw he
Uh,
contributed to it and it was a parody film, then I was like, "Oh, okay, we're fine."
man, I'm sorry.
Because it was made in 2017.
Calling calling Donald reasonably divisive was that tickled me.
Yeah, I do what I can.
That's like saying Mount Everest is a reasonably tall mountain.
It is. It is reasonably tall.
Oh man.
Don't tell me it isn't.
I,
God damn it! You're always trying to tell me that Mount Everest is unreasonable.
it needs to shrink a few
It
100 feet at
won't.
least.
It's never going to
It
happen.
won't. I know. Well, maybe it
Okay.
will. I mean, who knows with the world the way it is.
I mean, does sea
Some
levels
billionaire,
rising count
Elon
as?
Musk, should have buy the top 500 feet of Everest and put it in like
Sure.
his
But
mansion's
think about this.
yard.
If the higher sea levels rise, the lower above sea level that the mountain is.
That's
So that
true, and
does decrease its height
it is only viewed as above sea level because there's that other mountain that's like taller than
under.
Everest if you counted below sea level. And
Right.
it's like, well, you don't. We
But
don't
you
do
don't do
that.
that. I just won't allow it. Okay. Let's grade.
It's time. It's time to
Yes.
grade them.
So I think like cultural impact is a solid score for both artists here, and I think they get it from like Loggins and Messina get it from the music. Sonny and Cher get it from the not music, with one exception.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sonny and Cher. I'll start with the Sonny and Cher stuff because this is a good score for the two of them.
For a group that is essentially a one-hit wonder in terms of their
Correct.
music being known.
Yeah, I mean that's very true. They, like I had kind of mentioned, they managed to turn themselves into full-blown media personalities. And they had two top 10 TV shows in the US, which is pretty crazy. They had the
Yep.
Comedy Hour, the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, as well as the Sonny and Cher Show. So like they were everywhere during their time.
Yeah.
They had taken the world by absolute storm.
I agree.
And obviously it turned into a career variance for them. Sonny
Yeah.
eventually moved into politics, became a mayor somewhere, and then became a
Mhm.
congressman. Whereas Cher became like a global superstar. She's Cher still to
She
this day
is.
is Cher.
And so she shall remain.
Right. So, and of course, this is all weathered. I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you you have to love Cher's voice. I understand that Cher's vocals are divisive because she is like almost a full octave deeper than most women
Yeah.
would consider, like than most women sing.
Sure.
And so it's like a sound that's a little jarring to hear. And then of course when you get into like the Cher impressions of people because she is very definitive in who she is. I think that like they may end up with similar scores, but I really think this is a good score for Sonny and Cher. I think it's
Sure.
lower than it would be if this was just Cher,
Yeah, for
because you
sure.
can't give them all of Cher's points here.
Right.
But like this is probably like in the fives.
Yeah. Oh, I have no issue with that.
Yeah. And I would say like probably like two TV shows, a bunch of
That's a pretty big deal.
Grammys, and then becoming a congressman is cool, I guess. And then of course with Cher, I think like probably like a 5.5.
Okay, I would have gone higher, honestly.
If you want to go higher,
I
we can go.
mean,
We can
the
go higher.
TV is huge. Like, I'll go 5.7.
Yeah, let's do a 5.7. The only thing I'm thinking is like in the '70s, a top 10 TV show is like probably a little easier to get than a top 10 TV show today, because
Sure.
the market is so
Yeah.
saturated today.
Yeah.
Like a quick
All right. Five
aside,
six.
a quick no, we'll do the
No,
five
no, no, no.
seven. We're
Okay.
doing the 5.7, but the
Fine.
quick aside
Mhm.
is like, for instance, there's a record that's never going to be touched again with MASH. Like the MASH
Yeah.
series finale is the most watched show of all time,
Right.
and it's like an untouchable record because it was like one of the only shows airing.
Exactly.
It was, and so like everybody watched MASH,
Hmm.
and you're never going to get a show where that's going to touch that rating,
Right.
because you can't get like
Yeah. Oh, of course.
you can't get like a third of the United States to watch a show. Like it's just not, it
Nope.
can't happen.
No,
So,
cannot.
so Loggins and Messina.
They were super popular. I mean, they just, as soon as they came out, they went platinum, platinum, platinum,
Yeah.
gold, gold. They had a live album that went platinum. Like, they just were hitting. Like, all their albums were popular. All their albums were, the first one didn't hit the top 40, but it did go platinum. And then everything else they ever put out was a top 40 record.
Yeah, I mean, musically very successful. I think a lot of what you just said might kick into the next category more than
Sure.
this category. So the question is, what number would we give Loggins and Messina? Remembering that we can't give all the Loggins points
Oh,
because we
no,
didn't give
no,
all
no,
the
no.
Share points.
No, but I think we are. I mean, I'm comfortable here for that kind of consistency in the like a fours type of floor.
Sure, I could see them. I could see them being like in the fours. To be honest,
Yeah,
I think they're a little more consistent, but a little less like global phenomenon.
definitely.
Even though their music was
But I will
arguably
say, I
better.
think what helps them here is that just for the what we do, like we gave a lot of extra points for things that had nothing to do with music, and if it was
Well, yeah,
literally just pared down to that, they would be a one-hit wonder. Whereas
for sure.
Loggins and Messina are famous because of what they were able to write and play and produce. And so
Yeah,
that weighs a little bit more
the
heavily here for us.
cultural impact is definitely the least musical category,
Exactly, but
where like you
I
can
give
impact the
music
culture in multiple
points.
ways.
I give the music points like a little bit more weight than the non-music points in the overall scoring.
I understand that's the way you graded. I know.
Yeah.
I've graded with you long enough.
Yeah.
I try not to do that, which is why we often have
Yeah.
conversations in this category. Because I've like as far as I'm concerned, and again, this is mostly for the audience to hear it because you already know
Mhm.
this. The cultural impact doesn't have to be musical because every other category is. So, like, for instance, if Loggins and Messina had no cultural impact, but their music was as significantly better as maybe we're leaning it to be, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, they're probably still going to win based on that. So it's like, I want to be fair to people who had significant cultural moments and impacted culture, even if it wasn't
Okay.
just based on their music. You know what I mean? Like somebody like, if I don't know, we haven't covered Miley Cyrus.
Not
We
yet.
covered Selena Gomez.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we're covering Miley Cyrus. That's why her name popped in my head.
Yeah.
But like, Miley Cyrus is somebody who had like a ton of cultural phenomenon moments in her life. Like, I mean, she just did the whole thing that happened with what's his face, with Thicke, Robin Thicke at
Okay.
that music award show, where like she like twerked on Robin Thicke with like the phone. Like that was a cultural moment. It was
Sure.
crazy. You don't pay attention to pop culture, and I get that, which is why I'm here.
Yeah. All right.
I'm here to bring the youth in,
Right. The
even
youth.
though I'm only 17 days younger than you.
Yes. Here we are. I know there's nothing the youth loves more than comparing Loggins and Messina to Sonny and Cher.
Shut up.
Oh man.
The point remains. So I think a number in the fours makes sense.
I'm gonna give him a 4.4 so we can move on with our
I
lives.
love it. Let's
Breadth
move
of
on.
work.
Breadth of work.
5 albums for Sonny and Cher, 4.3, 2 golds, so they don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm also not moving them anywhere. I'm leaving them at a 4.3.
I'm gonna give them a 0.1.
You got it.
And I think the huge success of I Got You Babe is part of that. But honestly, like that second album, that one song that Sonny wrote was so surprising to me because I thought I had gotten a good feel for his writing.
Mhm.
Uh, and it impressed me. So
Fair enough.
I'll
Fair
give them
enough.
a half a point for surprise and a half a point for their
Very good.
phenomenal hit.
All right, Loggins and Messina, 6 albums, but several different platinums, 16 million albums sold worldwide. So they will be
Yeah.
getting a bump from their 5 starting point to a 5.2 or a 5.3, whatever you think.
16 million with not a ton of longevity. So I'm going to give
Correct.
them a 0.2.
Okay. And then I will also give them a 0.2 for their quality.
Yeah, and I'll give them a 0.2 for their quality as well.
Mhm.
It was really good to listen to all the way through, even though I could kind of hear the various like emotional parts of it a little bit. It was still very good all the way through to listen to.
Okay. So instrumental talent. Sonny and Cher were only vocalists on their records.
Yes.
I mean, this is a below average number for me. I don't know about you. Cher is not nearly enough to bring Sonny up.
Okay, here's what I think. Here's what I think it is to be the most fair we can be. Let's score them individually,
Okay.
and then we'll average it.
Okay.
Because I think that's the best chance we have here of being fair.
Okay.
I think Cher on these albums, so this is not including any of her
Mhm.
solo work, which if we end up covering that at some point, which I'm sure we
Yeah.
will I'm sure be a different score. Was an above average singer to be sure. She was good plus on these albums. She was definitely never given her chance to really like blow it out.
I would
Um,
not be giving her a number out of the lower 5s.
sure, I'd be giving her a number in like the 5.5 range.
Okay. So I
So
would be more
I'll
like
give her a
5.2
5.5, and you give her a 5.2. So let's average that out to a
to a
5.3 and
5.5.
a half,
So,
which is a 5.4.
okay. Right. And then Sonny, I'm going to give him like a 3.5.
I think that's probably fair. I mean, like a more melodic Bob Dylan as the comp is definitely a show of a low score. So I
Yeah.
think a 5.5 for
All right.
him.
So 0.9 splits the difference there. So 3.5 plus 0.9 is a 4.4.
Perfect. And that's scientific.
That is science. Loggins and Messina are both, to me, 5+ singers and 5+ guitarists.
Sure.
I think our overall number here still sits somewhere in the 5s, but I think
Mm-hmm.
now I'm on the more positive end there.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Loggins is the better singer. I think their guitar playing is comparable.
Messina, I
To
think, does most of the lead, if I recall correctly.
Sure,
But
and that's probably true. I'm not going to take. That's not what I know, so I
mhm,
won't say that as much. But their guitar playing, I heard both guitar parts, and they felt comparable to
mhm.
me as above average. And I think this is probably like closer to like a 5, 6, or 7 to me.
And I am fine out with the 5.6, and I will leave it there.
Sure.
Songwriting. Okay. So there's the 5 albums hurts because the max is a 4.3
Or
for Sonny and
under,
Cher.
and
And
the
they
large
only
number
wrote
of covers.
maybe a third of the songs overall if we're being very generous.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
it's not great.
it's a number in the ones for the amount of work that's getting written. And then I don't really move it.
With a slight bit of credit for the fact that they're overwhelmingly number one hit. was
Sure.
written by them. So
Fair enough.
I'll give them that at least.
How about a 1.8?
A
That
1.8
seems
is
generous.
totally fair.
Okay. Loggins and Messina, different story. They
Yes.
hit our album requirement. However, I will tell you this: one of their studio albums was a covers album.
0.
Yeah, so I would be
Erase the other
okay.
5 albums of work.
I would be okay starting them at the 4.3 for that,
Sure.
um, and then working up. But I still think we are working up from there. The songwriting
Oh,
was
absolutely.
solid. It drew on a variety of different genre influences. Like I would be okay coming back
A
and
lot of
seeing them writing.
buzzwords used in their stuff that is
Yeah.
it's if anyone knows, it's the Totem Talks gold buzzwords of
Oh
folk,
yes, for sure.
rock, blues.
Yeah, those are
You
good
give
ones.
us those, you give us those words, and we're just like drooling a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good combination a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So I would be okay bringing that score just right back up to the 5.
I'm a little higher.
Okay.
I'm not crazy higher than that because I know we're starting lower,
Just a
but like
little. I
just
mean, it covers out. I mean, obviously, your own arrangements of the songs and all that stuff comes into play,
yeah,
so it's not like a total 0.
yeah.
Um,
I would probably be closer like a 5.2.
I'll go with the 5.1 then.
Okay, yeah. It just feels like they're a little bit above average, specifically in their variances used, and like
Yeah, I'm going with that
the
too.
yeah the songs like it never felt bland.
Yeah. Okay. Poetic talent.
Okay, Sonny and Cher, I understand the lack of writing.
Right.
There's something to be said for the style of writing that Sonny does, which is simple but effective.
Sure.
Like I Got You Babe is a bit repetitive and a little cheesy, but there's a reason it became a global hit that is still popular today.
Yeah.
And it invokes the correct emotion. And then I think there's a couple other examples of that same feel. Plus, again, on All I Ever Need Is You, the song You Better Sit Down Kids was a real shock to me on like I didn't expect a song with that level of reflection to come from Sonny at the time.
I will allow another score in the high ones.
And I think that's accurate. I'm not arguing a high score here. I just think there's more here than you would have expected coming into them. I think like
Uh,
a 1.8 again would be fine with
okay.
me.
Poetic talent for Loggins and Messina.
This is a
I
better
think
score
there were some moments in there, particularly Danny's song, which is definitely much better written than I Got You Babe in terms of the lyrics.
for sure.
Um, so I'm still in the 5s, but a good score.
Yeah, I think you have a group here that is more focused on the songs as a whole than any individual part of the
Hmm.
song. And I think while sometimes that really helps a song, for this, it just kind of means everything feels cohesive. So, like, the lyrics and the music all blend together to the point where nothing is sticking out as, like, this is really good.
Hmm.
Like, even on Danny's song, where the lyrics are really good, the song is really good. So, it's a really good song all the way through. But, like,
Correct.
there are some artists, like, if you listen to their writing, their lyrics, it's like, dude, I can feel every ounce of your pain or every ounce of your happiness. And like the music is a tableau for that.
Mm,
And that's not what's happening here. Just like there's some artists who the lyrics don't matter. I mean, look at any blues song where the lyrics
yeah.
don't matter and it's just the emotions and the evocation of the chord structure.
Right.
And I think with Loggins and Messina, it's just like everything kind of fits together in this song soup. So a similar score here in as their songwriting. So like maybe just like the 5 for me here.
Okay. 5 it is. X Factor. Sonny and Cher.
Sonny's, I mean, Sonny's death was a huge thing when it happened. He was young for
I
it
don't
was
remember it.
well, we were 6,
Fair
but
enough.
he died in like a tragic ski accident. Um, as like a sitting congressman. It was a big deal when it
Okay.
happened. So maybe that could be a little bit of X factor here. Other than that, I mean, like, we've already touched upon their huge popularity at the time with their TV shows, the Grammys, the ranking as the duos, all the stuff that they had in the moment. Cher's eulogy at his funeral was like a huge like
Yeah.
thing
Right.
when it
Right.
happened. So I think that's worthy of like maybe like a point two or point three.
I'll give them the 0.3. Feeling very
Okay.
generous. Loggins and Messina, I get nothing. Maybe
Yeah, no, I
maybe
mean,
Loggins solo later on, but
yeah, Loggins Solo might get some X factor for his stuff. I mean, Footloose and A Star is Born are both huge, but Loggins and Messina, this just seems like two guys who are better known for other things getting together and putting some solid work in, and
yeah,
then saying like, "All right, see ya,"
cool.
and that's it.
Yep.
So
All right.
I
Well, then
think
I
we're
have
good.
final scores.
All right,
And winning the inaugural episode of season
winner,
7
winner, chicken dinner.
is Loggins and Messina.
Yeah,
With
that
a
made sense.
with a final score of 25.8, and Sonny and Cher coming in second place with an 18.4.
You know, they did their best.
They participated.
They were here. They were here for
For
this.
this episode, Sonny voted present.
Yikes. Anyway, uh, yeah, honestly, like a good showing. And I'll tell you what, like we were a little hard at times, I think, but all six of these albums were fine
Yeah,
listening.
there was no bad listening this week. And I
Yeah,
cannot promise that that is going to last even until next week.
but at least for now,
At
we
least for
are
now.
in a good spot, a good start to the season.
Yeah.
Shout out to Loggins and Messina if you would like to be on the show to talk about any of your works. We
We'd love
will
to have you.
completely change the format of the show the second you tell us you want to be on.
That is correct.
We will no longer be talking about albums for that episode. We will just be interviewing either Kenny Loggins or Jim Messina, or
Or
Kenny
both.
Loggins and Jim Messina,
Would be
or
nice.
Cher if you want to be involved
Sure.
as well. You're welcome to be on.
They'd make natural allies.
Exactly.
Okay, so come back
That's
next
all.
week.
Yeah, come back
Because
next week for
our
whatever hint you're about to
our
drop.
theme of the episode is this. Both of the artists we will be covering are named after food. So that is
Say
our
it like
theme.
that.
Everything is
Our
named
name
after
after
food.
food. I
I don't
mean,
know.
okay.
I don't know what's going on, man.
If I can pull that audio and make that like the tone that happens when you text me, just like food, I will do that.
I was trying to sound excited about it, but
You
I cannot.
sounded thrilled.
I am not excited about it.
Well, now you're letting us behind the curtain. You sounded
That's
thrilled.
true.
Well, anyway, listen. While we're all preparing for whatever happens next week, thank you so much for listening. If you can do me personally a favor, don't worry
Doing a
about Nick.
solid.
Do this for me. Tell one person about our podcast this week. One human being on this earth. Just say, I am listening to a music podcast you should check out. And you would make me just the happiest little boy. My Christmas would be saved.
That's right.
And that's all that
It
matters.
is in peril currently.
It's currently, if I don't hear that you told one person about this podcast, my Christmas will be
Paralyzed.
ruined. Tim Allen will stay in the North Pole. He will
Honestly,
not come
probably
deliver
for the
me
best
presents.
for anyone who has to work with him.
But he won't come deliver me my presents, Nick.
That's
important.
That is a problem.
Anyway, everybody, have a great day. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oof. The big oof.
So next week is corn or meatloaf. Which would you
I
like?
know. I mean, I want meatloaf.
All right, you got them.
Come on. I want meatloaf over corn.
I know. I guess we'll each go with the thing that we would eat if we were given these two items of food and had to split them. And we'll do that for the following week as well.
All right, now I'm looking. I don't know who it is.
It's Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey.
Oh yeah, like of course, the one you'd rather eat.
Yeah, Roger's all hair.
It's true. It's true. Oh my lord.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, like that. Hopefully, will be a good episode.
We can
Because I'm
hope.
not looking forward to Corn and Meatloaf. The Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers will be great, but we have to listen to Kid Rock.
I mean, there's. I'm desperately hoping we get. I would do anything for love
Yeah.
because I can't wait to actually talk about what that song is about
Oh
on the
boy.
podcast. You know what it's about, right?
Yes.
Good. Can't wait for that to be a discussion we have on this fucking
Oh
podcast. I'm
man.
so thrilled. Oh
Like
man.
Meatloaf is a guy that I can never fully wrap my mind around how successful he actually was. Because if when I think of great artists or like the most famous successful artists, and you had me list off like 100 of them, it wouldn't occur to me to say Meatloaf.
No. Meatloaf is he fits in a niche. Like he's a singer who has like a rock and roll esque voice,
Mm-hmm.
and roll esque voice, but sang like balladed stuff. Like he's
Yeah,
got that like range in his voice, like that high pitch, like the piercing tone, where he would have sounded good in rock, but because he's
sure.
stuck in like the pop like ballad range of like
Yeah,
singing stuff like that, it just created a whole other fan base for him that I think attributed to his success.
sure.
Like I'm sure he would have been successful as a rock and roller, like as a front man. But I
Yeah,
think one of the reasons he became like a kind of phenomenon as he did is because he didn't go in that genre. He went in
yeah.
a genre where there wasn't really people that sounded like that.
Yeah, that could definitely be it.
So, because every time I get asked to sing a Meatloaf song, because big guy, high voice, people think
Hmm.
Meatloaf, which fine, sure, I get it. Uh, every time we learn one of them is like so different from every other song we play.
Yeah,
Like 2 out of 3 ain't bad is so different from every other song we play.
yeah. I'm just looking through all of his singles, and I'm like, other than I Would Do Anything for Love, the only
So,
songs by
although I
him I've
still
ever
stand by the
heard are
fact,
all on Bad Out of Hell.
yeah,
Like it was all only Bad Out of
Bad
Hell.
Out of Hell's Bad. I don't know. I don't have the sales for Bad Out of Hell like out of my.
Oh, they're like,
It's huge.
yeah, 14 times platinum
Yeah,
RIAA, 26 times in Australia, 11 times in the UK, double diamond in Canada.
yeah. I was like, I mean, Bad Out of Hell was like eh, I can't even explain to you like the the, the drop in the pond that thing was. It was huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Paradise by the Dashboard Light. I stand by the fact we should do Paradise by the Dashboard Light because
There's no way we could pull that off
we
with
could
our
sing it.
personnel.
We could sing it.
Not with our personnel. Like we need 2 or 3 more musicians.
We could do an LT version of Paradise by the Dashboard Light because nobody listen. I don't think this for every song, but I think if you get up there with me and I'm singing Paradise by the Dashboard Light with you, and one of us is singing that girl part, no one's going to give a shit what is happening in the background as long as it's melodic.
I mean, here's what would definitely have to happen. Alex would have to be Phil Rizzuto.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because there's no way to do that without Phil Rizzuto's part. It's just not possible.
I'm saying it's possible that the 4 of us in our current formation, could do that song and it would be hilarious and good. I think good as well. But I think
Okay.
hilarious if we're singing Paradise by the Dashboard Light together.
It would be rather hilarious.
I might put that into our next rehearsal. Be like, we
Oh
should
god.
consider learning Paradise by the Dashboard Light and figuring it out. It would be funny, man. It'd be funny.
It would.
Talk about crowd work.
Yes, it
For
would be.
every like internal music jam that happens, there needs to be like a crowd pleaser too. And I think that would be a crowd pleaser.
I could see it working out eventually if we had the right arrangement.
Yes. You heard it here,
I don't know if
folks.
we have the right arrangement as currently constituted, but
I think we could do it.
uh,
Mason could probably just play the drums with his feet and also play like the
yeah,
bass line on his with his hands
that would help.
and open Alex up to play something else.
All right.
I think we got
By the way, Giuliano keeps texting me again, and
it. Oh yeah, we were supposed to call him like a week ago. And
I
we
haven't
didn't.
answered him. I just keep
I
ignoring all his
mean,
texts
if
for
we're
weeks.
not available for New Year's,
Right.
feel free to respond with that.
Yeah.
We're
But
not
here's the
available.
thing. It's been so long since I've responded to all his texts. Now I just don't want to do it. So
Well, I mean, we can't just ghost him. That's rude.
it is
But
rude.
if you
But
just
I would.
no, we shouldn't do that. Especially, I mean, I'll be honest with you, dude. Like, like not having a monthly gig opens us up, but we don't want to also then get rid of potential there as well until we fill those spots.
You're more than welcome to schedule them because I don't want to.
I feel like it'll be weird since you're the guy who talks to him if I just suddenly start doing it with no pretense. I just think it'll be weird.
It could be weird, but I'm also probably gonna ghost him.
I think if you just
I
text
might
him,
block his number.
don't
Giving
do
me
that.
anxiety.
Listen, I think the anxiety is just you not answering.
Yeah.
Just hit him up and say, "Hey, sorry I missed your text. I can confirm that we're not available for New Year's. We are looking to start booking for 2024 in January, and we will get a couple dates together and then get back to you." Boom. That gives you a few weeks of freedom.
That's not long enough.
Well, then we can figure out a couple dates to give him, just a couple. We can book like just a couple acoustics. That's it. Because I mean, we said at our meeting that we don't want to have the full band there.
Yeah.
So, oh, you know what I'm gonna do real quick? If we're gonna do this real quick,
Mm-hmm.
bye everybody.